Ladies and gentlemen, you never heard of the mystery box, you're missing out because these people, when they're talking about sex, they get raw. And my next guest, she's up there. She'll talk about anything she wants to talk about, and she doesn't hesitate to tell you how she feels about it. Ladies and gentlemen, Reba Sparrow. Reba, how you doing?
Hi, I'm really good. How are you?
I'm
Thank you.
doing good. You're looking very beautiful tonight. What's going on? You got the makeup on?
Oh,
Well,
thank
you happy?
you.
You
Got to be
decided
camera ready.
you got to be camera ready?
That's right.
Okay. Hey, anytime you come to the CTS, you got to get dressed up. You make me feel bad because I mean, I just came from outside. I got a jacket on and I'm cold.
Oh,
So,
I just woke up this way. This is how I
what
look. Good morning.
you live in Oregon, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, what's the temperature up there?
In this moment, it's like in the 40s and raining. It's rumored
Mm.
that we get some snow next week, but that's usually a lie. Usually turns to rain before that happens. So it's cold. It's cold and rainy.
Cold and rainy. Yeah.
Mhm.
So, where are you originally from?
I was born in Colorado Springs, Colorado, from a military family. So we stayed a couple of years when I was little there, and then just bounced everywhere. So we're then in California, Indiana. Spent 4 years in Germany on Ramstein Air Force Base, and then Georgia. Then my dad got stationed in North Carolina, and my mom was sick of the South, so we moved back to Colorado. And after college, I went to Seattle, Pacific Northwest, and then I found Portland and liked it a little bit better. So I've been in Portland since 2003, I think. Yeah. So I get around.
Being from Portland, 2020 was a very tough year for the city of Portland. How's everything going on right now?
Um, we like to say in Portland that we live in our little bubble and that it's just, sex and, the tagline here is keep Portland weird. So it's very artistic, and we say that we're in this little bubble. And I would definitely say with all of the rioting and the Black Lives Matter, of course, that's affecting everyone nationwide. I feel like our bubble has been burst, which is a good thing. I think people are having more conversations and are being more aware, self-aware. I think it's good from my perspective, but I'm open to saying I'm wrong. I'm open to saying I didn't know. I'm open to saying I didn't do enough, and learning and growing in that respect. I think a lot of people are still defensive and angry. So I'd say,
Yeah.
we are a divided Portland right now, for sure.
Well, the good thing about Alabama, we like our bubble, and we just like, hey, stay out of our bubble. Just personal space. That's all we need. So tell everybody about the mystery box. I mean, I'm not gonna lie to you, Rebecca, Reba. I don't know why I want to call you Rebecca. Uh, I didn't know anything about the mystery box,
Yeah.
and when I touched bases with you, the reason why I touched bases with you because I was on YouTube and I started looking up stuff on YouTube, and for some reason, this stuff it's called the mystery box started showing up, and it freaked me the f out. I was like, "What the hell is this?" And but then after I watched one video, I was like, "Let me watch another one," and then I was like, "Oh, okay." Oh, you can do that. I'm gonna watch another one. So I had to hit you up. I was like, so what exactly is the mystery box? Is it a comedy show? Is it just people coming up telling their stories? Is it open mic? What exactly is it?
Yeah, good question. Thanks for asking. And I know I'm not supposed to be interviewing you, but I want to interview you in a minute with a question. I want to know what kept you said it freaked you out, but then you were like, I'm going to keep watching. I love to hear that, because it's meant to be very universal. It's meant to be for everyone. So I like that. The Mystery Box Show our tagline is true stories all about sex. So they're real people. They're not necessarily performers, but they can be. But it's real people telling true stories from their lives all about sex. It is not an open mic because we don't trust that system. When it comes to sex, it's kind of a taboo topic still. And so it is not a comedy show necessarily, but oftentimes sex is funny. So when people are telling stories about it, it elicits laughter for sure. We coach the storytellers. So the way it works is someone will email in a pitch. They'll say, this one time this thing happened. And we ask for just like 2 to 3 sentences. We don't want it written out because ultimately it's an oral storytelling show. And so that's how we want to hear it for the first time, is orally. And we've just been doing this for so long. We're coming up on our 9th year. We just know in 2 or 3 sentences if it's going to make a good story or not, or if it has potential. And then we meet with the person. Pre-pandemic, it was usually in person, and it was centralized around Portland, which makes sense to me why you hadn't heard of us before, because we were primarily just in Portland. And then we hear their story, and then we coach them, and then we meet them again, and we hear the story again with the notes incorporated. And usually we have 2 to 3 coaching sessions, and then a rehearsal, and then a show. And each show has 4 to 5 storytellers, 2 hosts. I'm one of the hosts, and that's the show. Did that answer your question? I'm going to keep going. Since the pandemic, we obviously couldn't be in the theater anymore. Our home theater was the Alberta Rose Theater here in Portland. It seats 400 people. That was a typical show. We would do it every other month because it takes that long to coach this. I think people don't often realize how much coaching goes into it, but it's quite a bit to maintain that aesthetic. And maybe you noticed watching the videos that you were like, oh yeah, this is a mystery box show story. Like they all kind of have the same feel to them, not the same story, but the same aesthetic, where it's inviting and hopefully compelling to listen to, and you feel like you're allowed to be there. I know I've been in a lot of sexually charged spaces where sometimes folks have a chip on their shoulder, especially in the kink community. And I'm not trying to say bad things about the kink community at all. It's just, I've seen it sometimes and felt it sometimes where people don't feel like they belong there, or they don't feel included. And we try to make everyone feel like they're included. Does that make sense? I'm done monologuing.
Well, I mean, when you're talking about people in a sexual charged environment in the kink community, explain to me what that is, because I'm kind of a layman.
Yeah, no, that's a great question. I should say, I don't know if you know this, Portland, I believe, is the strip club capital of the United States, as far as I know. Sex workers are very common here. We have a large sex positive community, I guess. And I have a hard time with that word because people define it in very different ways. But so the kink community, I would say people who go to sex clubs quite a bit, who participate in, do you know what FetLife is?
No.
So FetLife is a website similar to Facebook. It's like Facebook for kinky people. So you can have a FetLife account and you can correspond with people locally or not. And people upload photos of them doing kinky things. And there's meetups through that as well. They're called munches. And so people who go to munches, I would say, are part of the kink community. And that's where you just meet up with people and you talk about what's called scenes, which is, this is a sexual experience I want to play out. And then you start to negotiate what that looks like and talk about consent and all these things. So I don't know if I can define the kink community for you necessarily, but those are people people who identify as kinky and want to explore that in an open way, either as a voyeur, just by themselves watching other people, or communing with, or just talking to each other. It's interesting. We tend to say that the Mystery Box Show is adjacent to the kink community. We're not like a sex show where you get on stage and we're not a sex education show. We're not trying to educate you on kink or anything like that. Not that kink is the only thing involved in sexuality. Obviously, there's a lot more. But we're sort of adjacent to it. So I don't know. Sex clubs, kink community. We have a kink fest here in Portland every year. So it's a big conference where people can attend it, and all kinds of demonstrations are happening, and you can sign up to get spanked or check out the newest sex toy, or you can go to a class, or you can watch a rope demonstration. All that's a part of the kink community. Is that a little bit more clear?
Stop right there. The CTS is moving to Portland, ladies and gentlemen. You can join us live in Portland. Stop by, come to the kink community, because that's where we're going to have our headquarters. Oh, wow. Yeah. So how did you get involved with the mystery box? So that is.
Yeah. So my co-producer, Eric, actually started the show by himself in 2012. And I went to a show. It was their 6th show. So he had only done 6 of them. And it was the same thing. It was true stories all about sex. And at the time, he was just he wanted to go to a show. So there are storytelling shows. Storytelling, the modern type of storytelling, is still fairly new, like relatively new as far as like media goes. I know storytelling is as old as time, but personal narrative, the way we do it on stage now, is kind of newish. Like The Moth is probably the most popular one that people have heard of, if you've heard of it at all. And anyway, he would see storytelling shows, and sometimes they would have stories about sex interspersed. And he was like, I want to go to a show that has all sex stories all the time. That must exist somewhere. And it does exist somewhere, to be fair. There's a couple of them sporadically throughout the US, but there weren't any in Portland. So he just decided, I'm just going to start my own. And so he gathered his friends mostly, because people love hearing about sex, but they don't necessarily want to share about sex, especially if it's a personal narrative, which is what we're asking for. So I went to the show and I watched it, and I thought, well, that was cute. That was fine. But I can make it better. So I approached Eric and I was like, I can make your show better. And he was like, oh, that's cute. No, thanks. But it took a while. It took, me kind of being like, no, really, here's what I so my background is in theater, as an actor, producer, director, so the whole thing of it. And psychology, I'm just very good at psychology. And a lot of the story coaching is about digging into like the why of your story, the purpose of your story. And I'm really good at that. And at the time, Eric is very, very good at structure. So, story structure, the beginning, the middle, the end, creating scenes within that. But it was missing the heart, so to speak. The thing that makes you feel like you can relate to the story as someone who maybe has never had a threesome before, but you're relating to the story because the emotions are relatable within it. So that's really my forte. Anyway, eventually I convinced him through a coach. I was like, no, let me coach, let me show you. And then he was like, oh. And it just kind of went from there to now I'm the executive producer and he's my co-producer. Yeah. Does that answer that question?
Well, oh, yes. You got me on the edge of my seat. I try to keep these interviews about 20, 30, 40, and sometimes it goes like 40, 50 minutes. I'm not going to lie, but you're definitely somebody I'm like, I need to be taking notes. My question is this, what gets a person to the point where they just feel open about talking about sex? For example, me. I'm in a marriage. I consider myself a very sexual person. That's all I can get into, just due to privacy, levels. But you're out there. You go out there and you talk. I mean, you go out in front of a stage maybe 500 to 1,000 people and tell them personal details about your life.
Mhm.
I recommend everybody look up on YouTube the coconut story. The that was pretty funny. Yeah, what gets you to that point where you like, I'm just going to tell people how it is? What got you to that point?
Well, honestly, I'll tell you that I know that it's not about me. I don't tell stories for personal gratification or to be on a soapbox or to be edgy, like, ooh, look at me, I'm going to talk about sex. Because the stories are never gratuitous. That's not the point. I really think that, one of our missions with the Mystery Box Show is to normalize sex and sexuality, because it is taboo and we don't talk about it that much. And I think that's what causes so many problems, insecurities, and shame around it. And I never want to say that that's our agenda. We don't have an agenda. We just are saying, I want to present these stories. Maybe you can get something out of it. Maybe you don't, and that's okay. So for me, a couple of things. I mentioned that I spent 4 years as a kid in Germany. And those were formative years from like age 4 to 8. And there, sexuality is just everywhere and it's not shameful. And I think I just absorbed that, as a kid, just like, what? Everyone has a relationship with sex. Even if you're asexual and you don't engage in sex, you still have a relationship with it in that it affects you in some way. And so if we're all doing it or thinking about it or have a relationship with it, why are we ashamed of it? So I think that's kind of my attitude about it. And that doesn't mean that some things aren't private. Some things are absolutely private. But I know that I enjoy hearing things from people that I thought I was the only one. And so when I hear someone else sharing that they've had an experience and I relate to it, it helps me feel like, I'm good. I'm okay. I feel seen. I feel heard. It creates empathy. So I don't know. I think it's easy for me to do that. I think there's a lot of strength and power and vulnerability. So I don't have a hard time being vulnerable around sex, if that makes sense. I feel empowered, actually, because.
Right. I don't think people are ashamed of sex. I don't think anybody's ashamed of sex, to be honest with you. I think people's philosophy of sex is a little different. Philosophy. So there's some people that think sex is to procreate. There's people that just think sex is just between a man and a woman. There's some people that think sex is just between a married couple. Some people just think sex is a private matter. I don't think anybody's really ever been ashamed of sex. Does that make sense?
I think I hear what you're saying. Let me clarify. Let me ask you if this is what you mean, because immediately I want to say, no, you're wrong. Because I've coached hundreds and hundreds of people, and shame is definitely a topic that they're like, yeah, I have shame around this. Let's talk it through. So maybe they don't have shame about sex in general, but they have shame about what they like. They're ashamed to admit fetish. Or
let me cut you off right there. Okay, sex and then stuff that how you say other activities during sex. Yeah, you may feel ashamed. You talking to someone that doesn't have a guilty pleasure. I don't believe in guilty pleasures. I like it. That's not even in sex. I'm talking about, like, I'll listen to a song and, well, you listen to that. I like it. You understand what I'm saying? I just don't believe in guilty pleasures. And every partner I had sexually, I was never the type of person like, oh, please don't. I got kids.
Me too.
Please don't. I mean, what the that was never me. So I don't understand the people that are like, oh, I don't like that. But my point was prior to that, and the point is, I don't think anybody's ever been ashamed of sex in general. I think people have been ashamed of the stuff or other activities that come with sex. Does that make sense?
It does make sense, and I'm going to challenge you to consider that.
Okay.
There are people who are flat out ashamed of sex, that they want to have it, that it's even a thing, especially, and I don't want to put anyone in a box, but especially older.
You don't want to put nobody in the mystery box.
Right. Yeah. But especially folks who grew up maybe like in the 40s or 50s and were like sex just was naughty and not talked about at all. And that stays with them throughout adulthood. I've met folks at our show, actually, when we had a live show pre-pandemic, who, audience members would approach us afterwards and tell us that like they drove all the way here from another state because they saw us on YouTube and thought it would be so great. And I once met a married couple, and the woman was, I don't know if she was in her 50s or 60s, and she was a virgin because even though she was married, she just couldn't. She was like, I'm here because I'm trying to get more comfortable and I'm trying to hear other people's experiences. And it was amazing that she shared that. But she was just like, yeah, sex was a no-no. And
yeah, that would be a divorce right there.
Well,
I don't got the patience
for you, but like for the husband, it was okay. And I don't know their whole, I don't know them.
He must have been very desperate. He just wanted somebody to hang out with. I couldn't do it.
He may have been.
No.
I don't want to guess what he was, but he may have been asexual. He may have been gay. He may have been just okay with it. Some people aren't. I know it's hard to believe because I'm not one of these people, and it sounds like you're not either.
No, am I.
Some people just aren't driven by sex. That's a real thing. It doesn't mean they don't like to have it. They're just not driven by it. So.
Yeah. Just consider us the car, and we're gonna drive this motherfucker out. So we know you're open, and you're open about your sex life. Your spouse, your boyfriends, how do they feel about somebody getting up on stage and telling the world about your sex life? I mean, like, okay, Reba, if I'm dating you and do you just come clean to tell me what you do for a living, or do I have to like catch it on YouTube and you tell everybody what you did to me?
No, it's the first thing. See, that's the mentality of having shame around sex. There's no reason for me to hide that. I'm very open and matter of fact about it because that's creating normalcy.
Reba, this may be my ego talking. Could be. I will want you to tell everybody what I do. That's just me. I'm that good. But anyway, but there's some people that may be like, hey, look, that's private. Don't tell people that you sucked on my toes.
Oh, sorry, I misunderstood the question. I thought you were asking if I tell people what I do for a living. You're saying.
Yeah, when you start, no, you understood the question. I just have a comment to follow. When you have a spouse or a boyfriend, and do you come out and tell them straight up, like, this is what I do for a living? Our sex life will be on stage.
So those things aren't mutually exclusive. Good question. I see what you're asking me. So I'm in an open marriage. So I do have a spouse and boyfriends.
God bless you.
Not limited.
God bless your husband. Is he now? Hang on 1 second. Does he share in that open relationship, or is it just for you?
It's just for me.
All right, go ahead.
Because he isn't interested. So it's not that I'm controlling. It's that he's not interested in anything else. So if that were to come up, we would have a discussion. That's how it works. You have to have tons and tons of open and honest communication, or it just doesn't work.
Right.
So when I tell stories, I know you've seen 2 stories of mine on YouTube. I actually tell a story at every single show. Only 2 of them are on YouTube because I don't want my mom to see them. But if I tell a story and it's about my spouse, or it's about even those stories that you've seen, the names have been changed. I don't, I'm not like, hey, you know that guy you saw me with the other day? This is about him and here's what happened with us. I don't do that. Yeah. So I never tell stories about people who can be easily identified. And there are some things that happen, like, yeah, I've got stories that I've probably will never tell, or I'm just not ready to, because they're happening now or have happened in the recent past, and I haven't worked it out yet. I never want to go up on stage and ask the audience to feel like they need to take care of me, or and this is true for any storyteller. We like to say, and I did not coin this phrase, someone else did, but we say, speak from your scars, not from your wounds, because we never want it to feel like you're having therapy on stage. And that's true for just like sexual or emotional things around sex that are going on currently that maybe I'll never talk about on stage, because that's mine. Right. It doesn't need to be shared. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. So your kids, I know you got a couple kids.
Just one.
How do they feel about just one?
I have one kid, unless you count my cat. She's definitely child status.
And counting your husband too. I mean, that's at least what my wife says. Like, I got kids and a husband. I don't know which one I need to ground. Yeah, she's not very funny. And anyway, is it your son?
Mm-hmm.
So how does he feel about mommy being so open about sex?
Well, I raised him not to be ashamed of it, so I don't think he has any feelings about it. He's just like, that's what mom does.
Yeah. You don't mind me asking? I know this could be a personal question. How old is he?
He's 16.
Oh, he's 16?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, well, he should be used to it by now.
Yeah.
Like, I know it probably freak him out at 8. Like,
well, it didn't.
Why is Uncle Johnny going into mommy's bedroom?
No, it's never freaked him out. I never, to be clear, we have an open line of communication about sex, but I don't flaunt my sexuality in front of him. I'm not like, go to bed early, honey, because we're having an orgy. Like, that's not how it is. It's just, we have an open line of communication about it. And I tell him what's going on with my job. And we talk about sex, right? We're not performing sex, and we also talk about sexuality and gender and those types of things. I love to ask his opinions on and have discussions with him about, because I think it's important for young people to be well informed and to know that their opinions are valuable, and to know that it isn't anything to be ashamed about, and that, especially around sexuality and gender, I think, I don't know what it's like in Alabama right now, but I love that so many people are feeling called to come out, I guess. Someone recently told me that coming out isn't a really good word to use anymore, and I agree, but I don't know any other way to say it. Coming out as transgendered.
Are you talking about gay? Coming out as gay?
Coming out as gay or transgendered or asexual or non-binary or all those things. I think it's great that so many people are doing that now. I think perhaps they didn't feel comfortable in the past to know that it was even an option. And so I like to keep those types of conversations open with my son, and get his opinions and thoughts and all that, because he's really smart and has great perspectives. Yeah. So
I think, that's just a stereotype when it comes to Alabama. You know, most of the people, I can speak for myself. You know, I do not care what anybody else does in their bedroom. And I don't care what you do in your life. I have a job to do. I got to pay the mortgage. I got to I got kids to take care of. So what other people do, I mean, it doesn't affect me. And I think that's everybody's attitude, pretty much that I know of. I'm not judgmental. I don't. It's one of those things where I don't care. If you're gay, you're gay. Then
yeah.
be gay. It's like that's your path. Do what you got to do. That's just my that's just my take about it. It's
No,
nothing personal.
I think that's great, and I think that's the goal, is for there to be more people like you who recognizes that your sexuality or your gender is just a very small part of who you are, and that it's not your whole identity, and that cool. I mean,
Yeah.
people are
So so let's get down to some of the juicy stuff here. So you got a very sexual drive. I mean, not a sexual driven performance that you are executive producer of. Am I correct?
Mhm.
Okay, so is it a lot of hookups? Because it's face to facts. When you go on stage, you start talking about sex. You know, it's gonna happen. People was gonna like, oh, I'm talking about sex, and you talking about sex. Oh, what are you doing tonight? Does that a lot of the hookups happen?
Are you asking, do hookups happen with me or with the storytellers in the audience in general?
I'm saying all the above.
All
Like,
the
does the when you go to the mystery box and you listen to the performers, do the other performers hook up with each other? Do you hook up with other performers? Does the audience get hooked up? Is it like hey, everybody stick around? It's gonna be an orgy in 15. So if you want to be part of the orgy, stick around.
So
I mean, what?
that's not the intention ever. It's interesting when I think because it's my job, right? And I'm very professional, and in a way, I'm just used to hearing people talk about sex all the time. It's my job. So I'm just like, okay, it's a show, it's a work day, let's get this done. We're doing it. The performance, I'm wearing all these different hats, doing all these different things. And then I hear from people in the audience, afterwards, or maybe my friends came or whatever, and they'll be like, yeah, I was getting so turned on when I was listening to this story. And I was like, oh, really? I forget that's a thing. Because I'm not getting turned on. I coached them through it. We had feelings around it. This was a job I had to do. So I forget that that's even a thing. But with that being said, yes, I have heard that people do have hookups that are in the audience. They meet each other for the first time, or they take their date there. Some storytellers have connected with each other and have formed relationships, maybe just hookups. I don't know. It's not the main thing that happens, though, but it's not unheard of, if that makes sense. I never engaged sexually with any of the storytellers because that just seems very unprofessional to me. And only once have I ever engaged sexually with an audience member, because that also feels it feels a little unprofessional to me. I've also come to learn that, how do I say this without sounding like pompous, but I think based on my experience, folks tend to fetishize me or have an idea of who they think I am based on what I do. And so even when they get to know me, they've put me on some sexual pedestal that honestly I don't like. Like, that's just not me. Even if I'm like, hey, I'm a real person, they're like, yeah, I know you say that, but you do this show. you have a lot of YouTube followers, you know? And I'm like, that's not real. Whatever it is that you're crafting in your head, that's not real. I'm a human being. So I was saying people fetishize me and I don't like it. And therefore I don't like I'm not a hookup person to begin with. I have to have genuine like emotions for you, or I'm not going to have a good time with sex. Yeah. I was about to say, and you didn't ask me this, but I was about to say, I do get a ton of unsolicited pics. People email me. It's mostly men, to my knowledge. Sometimes it's women, but that's pretty rare. If it is women, I hate to stereotype, but if it is women emailing me, or it's usually pretty courteous and consensual, like asking for consent if they're allowed to talk to me or send me a picture or something. But I do get a lot of unsolicited pics, or men just telling me how they, one recently was just like, I want to squirt my hot fertile seed all over your face.
Yeah. That used to be my pickup line.
That's your pickup. It works. It works every time.
Yeah. If I had a nickel for every time it worked, I have a penny. My question, but here's the thing about that. First off, did you get my dick? Second question. See, I think what it is, and I was asking somebody who talks about sex a lot with their podcast or YouTube. Let me see how I can say this without being flirtatious. Okay. You're a very beautiful woman. Okay. You're very open about sex. Guys are going to feel like, okay, well, she's that open. She seems very cool. They're going to try you. You know what I mean? That's just the name of the game, I guess. If I was a single man, I would definitely come up and talk to you. Does that make sense? I don't know if I'll go pick her out. I don't know if I'll go, hey, baby, let's go do this. I'm going to try to talk to you, try to build rapport with you. And then maybe, hopefully that, you and me can, go to the bedroom. However, I never understood the guys that went up there and she went straight to the dicks, because I never sent one. I never understood how the guys think. It's almost like when you're in the dating game and you go to the bar and you buy a girl a drink, automatically you think she's gonna sleep with you. It's kind of like, they're there for you to buy them drinks. You have to come correct to get to them to the next level. If you don't come correct, you're not going to get to the next level. Does that make sense? And I think your problem is that guys don't know how to get to the next level. Now, some guys do, and that's why you're married, and that's why you got boyfriends, because they know how to get to the next level. But majority of the guys don't know how to get to that next level. So they think because you talk about sex that you're going to enjoy that, or you're going to enjoy that vulgar vocabulary. And I guess that's why women are so defensive about, a lot of things, because how many times have you had to be defensive of a guy and say, look, leave me alone, you creep?
Most of the times.
I mean, that's what I'm getting from all this. Is like, hey, look, you're very open with sex, and they think that they can do whatever they want and say whatever they want to you. That's what I get from it.
Right. Well, so I've heard that explanation, if you will, what you just said, like, you're pretty and you talk about sex, therefore, male friends of mine have said, yeah, that's the deal. And my response is, well, that's...
Whoa. I didn't say that was the deal. I said that's what they believe. I don't believe that. I don't think that is the deal.
Good point. Right. Just having men explain to me, because it honestly baffles me. Like before I heard that perspective, I mean, and I understand, and by the way, I'm not trying to shame anyone. Like it is totally fine that any gendered person has these desires. It's the manner in which they're communicated that are not consensual, and that's the real issue. So like you're saying, you would try to build a rapport, you would approach me or some other person, and treat them like a human, it sounds like. And that's totally fine. I love that. I love interacting with people. I love when I feel respected. And I think when you send someone an unsolicited picture or even unsolicited words without consent, that's an immediate shutdown.
There are some guys right now that think strippers are just going to sleep with you. Now, I've never been the type of guy that had game to try to pick up a stripper. I've seen it done.
I think it's pretty rare. I think it's pretty rare because it's their job. I mean, that's their job, is to make you think that. But it's interesting that a lot of people don't realize that that's their job to make you think that. It's it can be confusing. It's your job.
But I mean, in some way, it's kind of, you may disagree with this. In some way, some people may have the perspective that it's your job to make you think that they can sleep with you. Does that make sense?
They think it's my job to make them want to sleep with me.
Think about it. Yeah, think about it. Hold on before you want to slap me. You're a very upfront person. You let people know about your sex life. So automatically they're going to think, hey, I probably can, this is an easy person to have sex with. Now, I know that's not true. You know it's not true. But there's going to be somebody's going to try you. And you've already said that there's been many people that tried you.
Mm-hmm.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does make sense. Yeah, I'm not going to slap you. I just don't feel that way. I think my job is to present. My job is to present. My job is to say, here are my experiences, and here I'm going to present to you other people's experiences that I think have value, and take from it what you will. That's my job. I don't have an agenda. There's no sex agenda or any other type of agenda behind it. But I will tell you, it's tricky to navigate when people do have that response towards me, and I want to be kind because I'm a nice person and I do have empathy. I never try to shame somebody. I never call somebody a creep. I never anything like that. But I do try to explain. I mean, some people just, like, their words or pictures don't warrant my energy at all, and so they just get ignored. Plus, a lot come in, so I'd be spending all day responding to these that just they don't need my energy. But some people, I will say, like, hey, just so you know, this was, not okay.
Yeah.
Like, we have a texting phone number, for instance. During the show, we ask for people to text in their confessions. We'll have a prompt and they'll text in confessions. Or we have a new show coming up actually on Tuesday called Sex People, where it's a round table and questions are being asked, and people can call in advance on a voicemail anonymously and ask their sex questions. Well, sometimes people will text that phone number, which, by the way, goes to my male co-producer, but they think it's me because I'm hosting the show or I'm the executive producer, and they'll send to that phone number. And so in those cases, sometimes, like, Eric will write back and be like, just so you know, this goes to our entire team. Like, you did not just send a personal text to Reba, and like 6 other people see Cage right now.
What's Eric like? Now, is Eric your husband, or is he just, so Eric's your husband?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Now, I could, personally, me, I can understand why he don't want to go outside the marriage. I mean, you got,
because he's got the whole package.
He's got the whole package. I mean, that's coming from the heart right there. I mean, why would you, when you got a BMW, why would you want to go try a bunch of Hondas?
Well, I could say the same about him. He's phenomenal. That has nothing to do with us having an open marriage. It's not like he's not enough, I need to go somewhere else. That's a whole other, I mean,
That's a whole nother story, and we'll get to it the next time. But I'm just stating the fact that I can understand why he stays home. He's got my respect on that. I mean, that's just being real.
I'm gonna say you've known me for less than an hour, but thank you.
Well, I mean, yeah, you haven't cooked for me yet.
Oh, I'm an excellent cook. I am plant-based, though. Not to say that somebody from the South.
Who isn't? Who isn't? My wife's plant-based too.
Is she?
She's a vegan.
Me too. 27 years. Have her call me.
Yeah, chia seeds and kale. It's like, God, you put some chicken in it, and she'll try to trick you with that tofu chicken or whatever, and it's like tastes like air rats going down. It's silky and.
I'm an excellent chef, though. We actually, you didn't ask me this, but I'll tell you. Pre-pandemic, we did this. This was my side project associated with the show that I loved so much. So
are you about to talk about the food, the sex food?
Well,
yeah, I saw that on YouTube.
No.
Okay, hold on. I'm sorry. Before you tell me what you were talking about, I saw a video with you and your husband, and it was a couple that hooked up with another couple, and they had food together in this orgy, this foursome. And I was like,
that was a confession corner video, right? Where people text in their confessions. No, so this is
so you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah. No, this is just a side thing. We've always recorded all of this. So we have all these videos of all the stories that we've ever done, right? And so pre-pandemic, I would host dinner parties. They were called the Mystery Box Show Social. And we would invite 2 past storytellers, because back then most people were local, storytellers were local, and they would be our guests of honor. And then people would buy tickets and they would come to the house. We could seat 20 people. I would cater everything. So I made these elaborate plant-based meals, and there was always a cocktail I would make, and an appetizer, and a main dish, and a dessert. And it was like alcohol, wine and booze all night long. It was all inclusive. And then we would show, we have a projector and a large screen. We would show that person's story, the guests of honor, both of them. And then we would have discussion about it. And then the guests got to talk to the storytellers, like in real time, like, oh my gosh, tell me more about your story. Tell me the things that you left out. Tell me, how was that on stage? How, and so it was just an open discussion forum. Anyway, all that to say, everybody always loved the food, and they often ask me for my recipes, and that's just me bragging about how good of a plant-based cook I am.
I got a question. Did the night end just like that, or did something follow the party?
No, people go home.
So it was no sexual stuff going on afterwards?
No. Okay. I mean, I don't know what people did. I don't know what people do once they leave.
I think what it is that, you see too many Cinemax movies. If you remember you know what I'm talking about? Like, the 3 couples go into this mansion and they share hot stories, and then
So I get invited to those parties all the time, and I'm actually not comfortable in that. I'm not comfortable with, like I said, if I'm going to have sex with a person, I have to have an emotional attachment to them. I'm not comfortable in an orgy situation. I've never been in a threesome. I've had sex in a sex club before, but the door is always shut. I don't want anybody watching. No, thank you. Like, I don't, I actually left a party once. This couple I know, they're amazing. They're sex educators, will often throw parties like that. They start out as dinner parties, and then they're like, and afterwards we'll go to the hot tub, and then we'll have sexy time. And this time, they sent out an invitation that was like, we're having a dinner party. This person's in town. They're our guest of honor. Please join us. This is not a sex party. Like, they clarified, none of that'll be happening. And I was like, cool, that's the party for me. So I'd go to the dinner party, and then right after dinner, other guests who were friends of theirs and have been to their house before and been to the parties have been like, oh, we can get naked in the hot tub now, right? And people are just like stripping off their clothes and I'm still eating my pudding or whatever it is. And I was like, no, like I did not sign up for this. You specifically said this would not be happening. And now you're crossing that boundary. I'm out. And I was pissed off and I left. Just like I didn't sign up for that. You know what I mean?
Well, it's very important to have boundaries. And you seem like somebody who has a lot of boundaries, but also have a lot of class. And, you know, I'm very happy that you came onto the CTS interview room. Consider yourself part of the family. I'm humbled that you came on, and maybe next time you come on, maybe Eric can join us and you know, we can talk more about the mystery box, talk about y'all's marriage, and Reba, I mean, you're an amazing human being, and I'm honored that you came.
Oh, I'm honored to have been asked. So thank you for having me. This was fun.
Well, that's it, y'all. So everybody, hit the subscribe button. If you want to see more people like Reba, she's not gonna come back unless we have like 200 million subscribers. She don't want to play with people with 7 subscribers. So if you want to see Reba again, hit the subscribe button. You know how to do it. I'm not gonna give you directions. Reba, stay online. Everybody else, I'll see you next Sunday. Oh, wait. Reba.
Yeah.
You got anything you want to plug?
I do. Thank you for asking. We have our annual Valentine's Day show, which will be live streamed this year on Valentine's Day. And you can get tickets for that at mysteryboxshow.com. It'll be live streaming on our YouTube channel at 7 p.m. Pacific time. And we're at youtube.com/mysteryboxshow for that. And our YouTube channel. Oh, we also have a podcast too, anywhere you find podcasts. So Mystery Box Show podcast.
When you got sex on the mind, it just forget how to close your own show. But anyway, Reba, stay online. Everybody else, see you next Sunday.